Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Take a few breaths and just notice where you are. Give yourself permission to let go of the week that was, great successes or challenges, happiness or sadness. Whatever the week was for you, notice it and then breathe it out, leave it at the door. And hold for a moment what you're hoping for on this Shabbat. It is our tradition to open the Sabbath with song. On the wings of angels, Yedid Nefesh, page 128.
Yedid Nefesh Averachaman, Yedid Nefesh Averachaman, Mishok Avdecha, Eretz Zorecha.
For those who are joining us virtually, we're thrilled that you're here, and we invite you to reach for the PDF that you will find below the live stream link. For those who are here in the Beit Knesset with us, a gentle reminder that if ever we needed to, we could always exit through the door you came in or through the side doors in the social hall, through the kitchen or the back social hall doors that would take us into the lobby or into the religious school wing. And there is always an emergency exit behind Alexandra coming up onto the bima if we ever needed it. Page 129, my beloved is mine, and I am my beloved's. This idea that we would open our hearts to the source, that the Sabbath is like for us that kind of mifkash, that kind of joy as we are with our beloved.
Todi vani lo haroeh bashoshanim todi izod olam minamidbar izod olam
Right hand forward. You can leave your prayer book. Left hand back. We're starting with our right foot. So turning together to page 121, as we celebrate Shabbat tonight, we are anticipating an amazing morning tomorrow as Isaiah becomes a bar mitzvah. We are kvelling together with his mom and dad, with Jessica and Josh, and at this time I ask Jessica and Isaiah to come forward at the bottom of page 121. Light the candle, sweetie. Oh no, I'm sorry. First read. I'm sorry. First read. Come right here.
Help me perfect my ways of loving and caring. Inspire me to make myself whole, so that I may honor your name and create a world of justice and peace.
Okay. Amen. Perfect. Izzy, bring the light in.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu להדליק נר של Shabbat.
In Judaism, before something happens, we don't say Mazal Tov, we say Bisha'a Tova. May it be an amazing hour, as I know it will be, and may there be blessings overflowing for your whole family. Shabbat Shalom. So as we find our footing on Shabbat, as we light candles together and bring the warmth of the light, our privilege, our simcha, our joy into our own hearts. We turn our hearts toward those who are struggling. The people in Ukraine, neighbors who don't have the blessings and fortune we have. And it has been and continues to be our tradition to acknowledge first responders, those who have been caring for us for a long 2.5 years through COVID. We recognize that the goodness that we have is directly connected to those who are caring for us, our loved ones, friends, community members, and neighbors. Izzy, you join us now, page 144, as you lead us with the ancient prayers of the Chatzi Kaddish.
Yitkadav
V'yitkadash
Shemei
Rabba
Rabba
Alma Divra Hirute V'yamlich Malchute V'chayechon Uvyomechon Uv'chayei Dechol Beit Yisrael Ba'agala Ba'agala Uvizman Kariv V'immeru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabba Mivarach Le'olam U'almei Almaya Yitbarach Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpa'ar V'yitromam V'yitnaseh V'yithadar, v'yitaleh, v'yitalal, Shmei Dekudesha Berichu, Le'elam min kol berchata, v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, Damiran be'alma v'immeru. Amen.
We ask that you rise now as you are able and that we join together and bless. 146. (148). This is an hour of change. Within it we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my friends, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back or cross over?
Baruch atah Adonai hama'ari v'aravi.
150.
Ahavat olam Yisrael Amcha
It is no coincidence that we ask Izzy to lead us in the Shema and Ve'ahavta, an affirmation of our faith, and Isaiah, so that you know the Shema and the Ve'ahavta. The Shema is flanked on both sides by love. First, Jack led us through Ahavat Olam, the sense that we receive unconditional, abounding love. And we affirm our faith, and then the expectation is, as a Jew, that you bring faith into the world. We pray together as you are comfortable and able, standing on 152.
Shema
Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed.
154.
Va'afta
Et Adonai Elohecha
בכל לבבך
ובכל נפשך
ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ושוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידך, והיו לטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. 157. In the middle of the page, we pray responsively. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, HaShekhinah, that there is one source in heaven and earth.
The high heavens declare your glory. May earth reveal your justice and love.
From bondage in Egypt, we were delivered. At Sinai, we bound ourselves to your way.
Inspired by prophets and instructed by sages, time and again we overcame oppressive forces.
Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed.
Let us continue to work for the day when the nations will be one and at peace. Then shall we rejoice as Israel did,
Singing on the shores of the sea. 158, the song of Miriam and Moses, the song of Bnei Yisrael, becomes our song.
Yai, lai, yai, lai, 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 yai, lai, 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 yai, lai, 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 yai, lai, 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 yai, lai, yai, lai, 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 lai. Kamocha ba'elim Adonai, kamocha nehar b'kodesh, Torah tehilot oseh pelem, Torah tehilot oseh pelem. Malchut zechora uvanecha, chokei hayam lifnei Moshe Miriam, Ze'eli anu ve'amru, Ze'eli anu ve'amru, Adonai imno ve'olam va'ed, Adonai imno le'olam
"161. Give us a place to rest, Adonai, source of all creation. Bring us into shelter, into the soft, long evening shadows of your truth. For with you are true protection and safety, and in your presence are acceptance and gentle love. Watch over us as we go forth. Prepare for us as we return. Spread over us your shelter of peace, over all we love, over our Jerusalem and yours.
Facing page 160. (164). Tfilat Amidah literally means standing. We stand because we're no longer just speaking prayer. We become our prayer. We use our entire being as part of the prayer. As you are able and as you choose, please stand now as we open with Tfilat Amidah. And imagine what's on your heart. Imagine what you're bringing in prayer, what you want to say to the Eternal One, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, what you bring on this Shabbat. It is traditional on Friday evening to pray the Amidah b'lachash. Lachash doesn't mean silent. It means a whisper. Why is it called Tfilah b'lachash and not Tfilah b'domama? Why is it called a whispered prayer and not a silent prayer? Remember to whisper loud enough that you hear what you offer to the Eternal One. additional tefillah continues through page 180. When you've completed the offerings of your hearts, your tefillah, work your way back to your seats.
I was challenged recently to consider the difference between inclusion and belonging. It was an invitation issued lovingly to think critically about how language, even language that's meant to convey a sense of welcome, can perpetuate bias and uphold systems of inequity. You see, embedded in the language of inclusion, whether it's expressed as a value or as a goal, is an oppositional discourse, a discourse of normative positioning and outsider status, the proverbial us and them. It's in this binary, this oppositional binary, that difference and the undifferentiated other is and are defined against dominant identity categories, not white, not male, not straight. And it's a space where who's in and who's out is determined by those who are already in, and where the terms of participation, the sort of spoken, unspoken terms of inclusion or exclusion, engender marginality, particularly for those who are already marginalized. Belonging, on the other hand, is, as a matter of process, it's more of a framework. It's a framework for examining and remediating these mechanisms of exclusion, the othering, if you will. And it does so by bringing marginalized outgroups into the center of our concern, and by recognizing, accommodating, and giving voice to difference. And simply by asking who's missing. As a matter of experience, however, belonging is the sense of fitting in, of feeling seen, and of being valued. In the context of Jewish community, indeed in the context of this community, a community that strives to be holy and whole, strives to be a place of belonging, it's on us to figure out, to determine how best to welcome, honor, celebrate, rejoice in difference, in diversity, without othering those who are different. We read in this week's Torah portion in Parsha Beha Alotecha conflicting examples of how to navigate difference. I'm going to give you two. In the first example, in Numbers 9:6, which is immediately preceded by a list of instructions regarding the Korban Pesach, a group of householders who have been defiled by a corpse and therefore unable to make the sacrificial offering at the specified time, approach Moses and Aaron, saying essentially, what about us? We've been busily tending to matters of community, to burying the dead, and are, by virtue of our impurity, unable to participate. We are forbidden from offering the Korban Pesach. We feel excluded. And what does Moses say? Moses says, Imdu, stand by. Stand by while I listen for instructions from God. And what does God say? God says anyone who's been defiled by a corpse or is on a long journey is otherwise unable to offer the Korban Pesach offering, can offer it at a different time. And just like that, God changes God's law and institutes for all eternity Pesach Sheni. only it were that simple. Of course, responsive leadership and perhaps even prayer are necessary if we want to build communities of belonging, but alas, we read in the Midrash that God transferred God's authority over matters of halakha to the rabbis and is therefore powerless to intercede, or so the rabbis say. I'm going to give you a second example. In the second example, the Israelites who in their journey through the deserts were accompanied by the divine presence appearing above the Mishkan as a cloud of water by day and as a cloud of fire by night, and who, weary from their desert walk, benefited not only from the cooling vision of godly mist and the guiding light and warming flame of a fiery cloud, but were provided with heavenly snacks. Ostensibly, the Israelites have what they need, and yet they took to bitter complaining. In response, God lays waste to the outskirts of the camp. Then, depending on how you count, one or two things happen. The asafsuf develop a gluttonous craving, and the Israelites cry out. Or, one, the asafsuf developed a gluttonous craving, and two, the Israelites cried out. Either way, whether the asafsuf are considered Israelites or not, whether they are considered other or not, in or out, us or them, either way, Moses heard their cries and is distressed. Either way, God hears their cries and is enraged. Moses falls apart, pleading with God to spare him the burden of this ungrateful lot. And what does God do? God does two things. First, God enlists 70 elders to share with Moses the work of leading the people. And then, and here's where things take a bit of a turn, with a promise to provide meat, God instructs the people to purify themselves. And what follows is a windstorm of quail and the divine provisioning of meat such that the people were waist deep in game. And then a plague. And then God sends a plague and kills all who would send their portion of manna, their heavenly snacks, back to Hashemayim. This example is harder to make sense of. But this pattern of separating ourselves from difference, and those who are different from us, this is familiar. This is something we know. This we see. In the background, just behind all the action, or perhaps in the center of it, is the Mishkan, the pop-up tabernacle that the Israelites built and carried with them on their journey through the desert. And it's in trying to make sense of this story that I think about the Mishkan. It's in imagining the Mishkan, which we've encountered along the way, the very detailed instructions of its construction. But it's in imagining the Mishkan that I can imagine possibilities, and that I can begin to make sense of what the Torah is teaching. Now, as a carpenter, I think about the Mishkan and I imagine the artisans, the woodworkers, the smiths, the weavers, and I admire their art. I think about the Mishkan and I imagine the laborers and I recognize the value of their labor. I think about the Mishkan and I imagine the glory of engaging in creative acts commissioned by the Creator. But if I convert cubits to feet, and I convert metaphors to meaning. I think about the Mishkan as a blueprint for belonging and as a model for Jewish community. And it's then that I can imagine the Jewish future. The future of Jewish community when one's status as a Jew is not predetermined, not by biology or genealogy, but by affinity, love, and learning. When, as a matter of priority, Jews have strong, trusting, supportive relationships with non-Jews. When Jews honor the past with a forward-facing commitment to the present. Where there are no central or peripheral positions from which to participate or observe. There's no us, there's no them. When I think about the Mishkan as a model for community, for this community, I imagine a bigger tent. And on the parochet, on the space above the entryway, the invitational banner, I imagine a flag that reads, V'gam erev rav ola itam. And a mixed multitude went up with them. There's a lot of debate about the erev rav and how best to translate these words, which only appear together once throughout the entire Torah and whose original meaning is lost to history. But considered separately, the words erev and rav, commonly translated as a mixed multitude, and considered together in a reduplicative reading, the erev rav is analogous to the Yasaf Suf. The Yasaf Suf, who we've just heard accompanied the Israelites into the wilderness and who cried out, who, along with the Israelites, had a complaint to make about the food. The erev rav and the Yasaf Suf are likened in the English translation to riffraff, to rabble-rousers, troublemakers, and throughout history have been described as outcasts, infantrymen, ideologues, opportunists, mercenaries, cutthroats, fugitives, Egyptians who married the Israelites, non-Israelite slaves who sought their freedom, magicians, Egyptian magicians who followed the Israelites into the desert, but who were ultimately responsible for the golden calf. It wasn't us, it was them. As the progeny of demonic rulers who stood at Sinai, but who stood separately and only appeared to align themselves with the Israelites, but who were in fact spiritually incomplete, as converts who didn't really convert, or who didn't convert with sincere intentions, or didn't convert at all, as corrupt souls who reincarnate in every generation and continue to threaten Jews and Israel and us. The Zohar takes an especially negative view of the erev rav, of the Yasaf Suf, and says, they're not really God's people. Not really. They're Moses' people. They stood at Sinai, but they stood separately. They are not us. According to the Zohar, even though the erev rav and the Yasaf Suf stood at Sinai, the mixed multitude, the confused gathering, are an eternal source of corruption, sin, and discord. The erev rav, the Yasaf Suf, are the eternal, undifferentiated other. Forever on the outside. More recently, been this outsider status of the Erev Rav, of the Asafsuf, that has led to attempts by Jews occupying historically marginalized identities, queer Jews, Jews of color, Jews by choice, Jews who have otherwise been othered, to claim the moniker Erev Rav. We are the Erev Rav, they say. Black Jews, queer Jews. We were there. We've been here this whole time. That's us. We are the mixed multitude. And I like it. It accounts for difference and appeals to biblical history and reminds those who might question difference within the Jewish community, that we've always been defined by difference. The trouble is that it sets those who are different apart from the beginning. Of course, neither the Erev Rav or the Asafsuf were party to the covenants until they stood at Sinai. But the argument that marginalized Jews are the Erev Rav suggests that they were separate from the start, which I think serves to further marginalize them. I think there's another way. Rabbi Gail Leibovitz teaches that there were three types of people living in Egypt prior to the Exodus. Those who were content with the status quo, slavery and oppression, and who died in the plagues. Those who rose up against Pharaoh in support of the Israelites and who aided their escape. And the Erev Rav, those who cast their lots with the Israelites and followed them out of the narrow space into freedom. Now these first two groups, status quo, I'll help you on your way, these groups model contrasting responses to injustice, indifference and defiance. But the Erev Rav model what is, I think, the strongest form of resistance: solidarity. In a radical act of solidarity, the Erev Rav, however defined, aligned themselves with an oppressed people and chose to participate in their struggle for justice and liberation. For this show of solidarity, Exodus Rabbah refers to the Erev Rav as the proper ones. Ultimately, Leibovitz concludes, we should strive to be like the Erev Rav. Just as Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel marched with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. at Selma, so too should we stand with the oppressed while recommitting our efforts to ending their oppression. And when it comes to determining who's in and who's out, and to building communities of belonging, that we commit to change. So in this time of plague, as we suffer the injustices of racism and homophobia, as we suffer the injustice, war, hunger, homelessness, the question becomes, how and with whom do we express solidarity? How do we, days out from Juneteenth, the commemoration of the abolition of slavery and of 2S LGBTQIA Pride, the queer rebellion against violence and oppression, how do we live up to our vision and become a community of belonging? How do we become a community that is welcoming and accessible to those who might otherwise feel excluded? A community that is inspired by difference and that can sit with and move through discomfort. A community that's not afraid to experiment and change, and that is engaged in and committed to courageous conversations. A community that abandons or simply says no thank you to strategies that don't work or that limit participation. A community that can hold what's hard, fix what's broken, and celebrate joyously. How do we become everything we can be? I don't have the answer, of course. I suspect there's more than one. I have only questions. But what I can offer are two things. One is the suggestion that we reject singular narratives, binary constructs, these sort of blurry summation of themes that limit or that invariably fail to tell the whole story, that limits who we are and how we're known. That's the first thing. The second is that we start now. Shabbat Shalom. $371.
As we move to the Misha Berach, I will be offering prayers of healing of body and soul for members of our community who we are aware are struggling with challenges of health. As I offer these names, I will ask that you share any names of family, friends, or community members that should be named at this time. We are holding in our hearts Arnie Zappel, Susan Bosch, Yisrael Aga, Amelia Byers, Audrey Cohn, Phyllis Fillmore, Rachel Fleischer, Ellie Edelwitz, Ilona Johnson, Mary Les Strange, Ken Lyjak, Karen Martinez, Alicia Okram, Merle Perlmutter, Elaine Trott, Paul Tubin, and Lauren Petties. Additional names that you may want to add at this time.
Claude Schleuderer.
Kay Barnard.
Please rise. Reaching for the yellow sheet, Alexandra offers a Misha Berach.
Misha Berach Avotinu, Avraham, Yitzchak, veYaakov. Misha Berach Imotenu, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel. May the one who blessed our mothers, may the one who blessed our fathers, hear our prayer, hear our prayer. power of your love. May our hearts be filled with understanding and strengthened by the power of your love. Bless us with the vision for tomorrow. Help us to reach out to those in need. May the warmth of friendship ease our sorrow. Give us courage, give us faith, show us the way. Mishabera avotinu, Mishabera imotenu. Hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, and bless us as well.
And now for some announcements. Tomorrow, morning minion service starting at 10 a.m. and Isaiah Applestone will be called to the Torah. Following services tomorrow, join Rabbi Yael and the Tikkun Olam Committee for Kingston's Juneteenth commemoration, or meet us at the Harambe Center at 157 Pine Street. Kingston between noon and 5. There will be street vendors, exhibits, music, and speakers. Juneteenth, traditionally observed on June 19th, was established as a federal holiday recently to commemorate the legal freedom of enslaved Black Americans. Next Friday, Kabbalat Shabbat service begins at 7:30. Movies with Spirit, Saturday, July 16th. Consult the website for time and other details. Tisha B'Av, Saturday evening, August 6th, starting at 6 p.m., gathering at the Pavilion at Kingston Point Rotary Park off of Delaware Avenue to observe this day with your community and to study PU team with musical accompaniment. Elul, blowing of the shofar, begins Friday, September 2nd at 5:55 p.m. before early service beginning at 6. Slichot, restorative justice as a path to forgiveness, on Saturday, September 17th at 7 p.m. Prepare for the new year with your community as we study restorative justice and participate in a group discussion led by a panel of professionals and activists working in this area. Israel trip, it's forming, coming together, scheduled for June 25th, 2023. We have room for everyone.
We're actually leaving June 29th. We've changed the date, and the announcements, not Jack, but the office didn't catch up yet.
Israel trip, June 29th. Room for everyone. Hope you will join. Itinerary still in formation, but it's looking really good. And we want your inputs. If you want information, contact Alexa Markovich. Ukraine Humanitarian Aid, CHV, is partnering with the Ukrainian American Youth Association of the Hudson Valley to send urgently needed medical supplies to Ukraine. They can be dropped off here, synagogue in the front entrance. CHV's Food Access and Security Initiative continues to support the Blue Fridge. Ongoing program accepts a variety of donation items, including prepared meals, fresh produce, or pantry staples. More information can be found in the office or on the website.
So I realized when I look out that not everybody in the Beit Knesset has had the opportunity to meet our rabbinic intern. Jack has been with us for the last year, and we're very excited that Jack will be returning next year and will be on the pulpit with us twice a month, as opposed to now. You may have missed him because he was just here once a month on the pulpit. and once a month midweek with me. As we stand, as you are able, on 587, having Jack with us on the bima is not just the fullness of his presence, the wisdom of his teachings, but he brings a connection to the rabbinical seminary, and this evening Alexandra will lead us with an aleinu from one of Jack's colleagues, Iris Carlin, as a new melody is introduced, B'zchut, our rabbinic intern. 587, noticing humility, noticing the sacred.
Aleinu lishabeach lifativel liv'ol ve'lamol letikun olam ki bechorchinu livnot ulotakin uviyadeinu lechatzmiach geula bayom hahu yishkenu lavitach kol bai olam.
Please be seated.
$592. When I die, give what's left of me away to children and old people who wait to die. And if you need to cry, cry for your friends walking the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give them what you need to give to me. I want to leave you something better than words or sounds. Look for me in the people I've known or loved, and if you cannot give me away, at least let me live in your eyes and not in your mind. You can love me best by letting hands touch hands, by letting bodies touch bodies, and by letting go of children that need to be free. Love doesn't die. People do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away. There comes a time when we can no longer pray facing the people we love. We remember those loved ones for whom members are observing Shloshim and Shana, Shiva. Holding especially close in our hearts Alec Cohen, Anita Cantor's grandson. We also hold in memory the names of those we've loved who've died at this time in seasons past. Ruth Davis, Seth Duberstein, Lucy Goldfarb's brother, Greta Field, Clara Frischberg, Estelle Madler's aunt. Morris Kalish, Deborah Kalish's father-in-law. Morris Kalish. Lee Levy, Gail Levy's stepmother-in-law. Bernice Pincus, Randy Zinn's grandmother. Marjorie Roth, Sharon Zappel's mother. Sandy Samuelson, Ron Siegel's wife. Maurice Weinstein, Pauline Weisberger, Follett Wolf, Felice M. Gasul's grandfather. Ben Ushkow, remembered by Fonda Rothblatt. Turn now to 598. Ask that you stand as you are able as we join together. Tfilat. Kaddish Yatom. Yit Gadal, V'yit Kadash, Shmei Rabbah, Ve'alma Divra Hirutei, V'yamlich Malchutei, V'chaye Hon V'yom Echon, Chaye Dekol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala Uvizman Kariv V'imru Amen. Yehei Shnei Rabbah Mevorach, Le'olam Ulalmei Olmaya, Yitbarak v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yithaleh v'yithalal Shnei Kudusha v'richu Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbachata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'imru Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya V'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol bnei Adam v'imru Amen. Pranam v'bracha. Turn now to 649. Join in a prayer for the way.
May we be blessed as we go on our way. May we be guided in peace. May we be blessed with health and joy. May this be our blessing. Amen. Amen.
So Isaiah, as you're standing with this Kiddush cup filled with sweet wine from the vine, so we pray that Isaiah's life will be nothing but blessings and overflowing sweetness, Shefa Kol Tov. Vayehi Erev, Vayehi Boker, Yom HaShishi, Vayechulu, Hashamayim v'ha'aretz v'chol tzeva'am, Vayechal Elohim, Bayom HaShvi'i, Melachto asher asa, Vayishpot Bayom HaShvi'i, Mikol melachto asher asa, Vayivarech Elohim et Yom HaShvi'i, Vaykadesh oto ki v'ho Shabbat, Mikol melachto asher bara Elohim, Lasot Savri. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Amen. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu b'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh bereshit ki hu yom techila lemikra kodesh zecher yitziat mitzrayim kivanu v'charta ve'otanu kedasha im kol ha'amim B'Shabbat kodshecha, be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh haShabbat. Amen. You can have a drink. So before we break bread, just two things. Whoa. First of all, just take a moment and turn and greet somebody that you didn't come in with and just say hello, hello.
Hello, hello. Hello.
Introduce yourself, Yisrael, Jessica, in case you don't know one another.
Should I put this back?
You should, yeah. And now, a couple of things. I'm not allowed to make this announcement yet, but it's pretty much going to be official, probably this week. The board has overwhelmingly decided to go with a year's experiment, a trial of beginning July 1st to have services at 6 p.m. each and every week so that we can just all get on the same page. If anyone has young children, they can come early and then go home. If anyone is finding it harder to drive at night, you can come early and get home. And for those of us who love to bask in Shabbat Eve dinner, I can pray with you and then go home and not get up from my table. To share with you that a half an hour before services, we're going to have hors d'oeuvres. So if you're somebody coming directly from work, there'll be healthy fruit, nuts, cheese, crackers, so that people can feel comfortable during services until they get home. Before we break bread, Surot Tovot, anyone have good news that they want to share? Anyone have something special this week that they want to share? Vicky?
I've been very, very concerned about my dog, who I thought I'd have to put down for a week or so ago, and she actually is doing better.
Amazing.
She's a little late today, and I just feel so elated about it.
That's amazing. That's amazing. We've all been there, or you get a good story, a good outcome. Thank you for sharing that.
Hopefully, I don't want to give it
It's good for today. That's what we take. It's good for today. Other Surot Tovot, any good news that anybody would like to share?
New ceilings
Ah,
and a new ceiling in my dining room, and I will have one in my living room, and then the rooms will be painted fresh, and all is good, and we're going to see our grandchild this weekend and celebrate Father's Day.
amazing, amazing. So my good news is that I'm going to celebrate Juneteenth tomorrow after Isaiah's Bar Mitzvah. And Jack announced it, but I just want to make sure you're on to this. If you have never celebrated Juneteenth, I'll show you the way. So either meet me over at Pine Street or come here after services and we'll go over together. This is what Jack was talking about. Come, celebrate Juneteenth with me. Everyone, I think everyone should do it except for Isaiah, who has family coming in from out of town. So he gets a pass tomorrow, but next year you'll celebrate Juneteenth with me. One more person. Anyone else want to share any good news? Bsorot tovot. It's all good news, Jessica. Amazing. Do you want to pick this up, sweetie? Pick it up with this, if you would. Hamotzi lechem min haaretz. We give thanks to the source for bread. Our voices rise in song together as our joyful prayer is said. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Isaiah's going to bring this to the back so we don't get crumbs on the floor. And looking forward to greeting everyone back there. Everyone get some challah. I'm so glad that you're here. And I really look forward to sharing tomorrow morning with you, Isaiah, and with your family. Bring that to the back. Thank you. Shabbat shalom.